Welcome to the complete Java Productivity and Debugging Techniques course with Intellij IDE. This course will help you increase your Java productivity by a factor of 10. Intellij is the industry standard among all Java developers. Its popularity grew rapidly in the past few years, and today it is the most popular IDE for Java, preferred by over 65% of all Java developers, according to jrebel.com. Any beginner or expert user of Java looking to improve their productivity can greatly benefit from Intellij Productivity and Debugging Techniques course. Intellij provides smart code completion, code inspection, on-fly error handling, and quick fixes, along with automate code refactoring, rich navigation capabilities, live templates, and end-to-end Git support. And this course will ensure that you master each and every of those features. In fact, Intellij is the only IDE that has support for all major Java technologies such as Gradle, Maven, JavaFX, Spring, and many more. So in this course, you will learn how to make simple the complex frameworks and automation tools using Intellij. We will begin by discussing the process for managing and customizing your Intellij workplace. This includes how to arrange the project window, as well as deep diving into the core project files. You will get a detailed view on how Intellij supports the process of developing Java applications. And more specifically, we will look at the features in Intellij that facilitate code inspection, code completion, refactoring, and documentation. It is a great time to learn Java and especially Intellij, so I'm looking forward to see you in this course. I'm uploading completely free programming courses every week, so make sure you hit the subscribe button to get more coding skills. Intellij has become in the past few years the industry standard for IDE when working with Java. It supports all major project frameworks, and knowing how to use Intellij efficiently will really increase your productivity skills using Java and will drastically simplify your work. It's way faster, and my favorite feature of Intellij is actually that your project always works there. All those required installations are automatically done on the background, so if your project supports additional libraries that are outside your IDE or of your Java installation, then Intellij will do all that setup for you in the background. This really saves a lot of time. In addition to that, in this course you will learn a lot of techniques to really speed up your process of writing a code and configure your project. You can find the complete course on the link in the description. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this very first video, I will show you how you can install Java and JDK in your device. So here I am on my device. I'm using macOS operating system, but the process is pretty similar for Windows as well. So let's get started. The first thing that you will need to do is to simply download Java. So if you simply write in Google JDK download, then you can simply click on the first page, which is Java downloads. And there you will find the version that is suitable for your operating system. Since I'm using macOS with M1 chip, I will select macOS and then I will go to the ARM-based chip. And for example, if you're using Mac and you want to check which type of processor you have, you can do about this Mac, and then you can check your processor right here. So my chip is Apple M1. So in my case, I will select download the ARM64 version. So just click download here, and then the file will start downloading into your device. Now, once you have this file, simply select it, and then it would open and load. Click on the JDK 18 or whatever version you're downloading, and after that just follow the instructions. So here you click continue, then install, write your credentials, and after you are ready, then Java will start installing into your device. Okay, so as you can see, the installation has been successful, so let's close that and let's move it to trash. And then the next step is to go to your terminal, so write terminal, and here let's check if Java has been successfully installed into our device. So write java -- version, and you can see that we successfully have installed Java 18 into the Mac. So we're not done yet because we also need to set up the Java virtual environment and the path in order to be able to run our Java files from the terminal. So let's do that. The very first thing that you need to do is to find whether your Java home path is already set up or not. You can do that by writing echo $Java home. Okay, so as you can see, this variable has not been set because we have no path here, so we will need to set it up manually, which is quite easy. So let's do pwd just to see in which directory we are. So make sure that you're in your username directory and then do ls-o, and here you see all the files that are in your user directory. So now once we're here, let's create a file called zsh env. So let's do touch/.zsh env. Okay, so now this file has been created and let's open it. So let's do open and then let's write the name of the file, so zsh env. Okay, I just need to place the dot on the right place, and here is our file. So now we have it opened, and in that file you need to place the path to your Java directory. So let's first find your Java directory. From here, actually, let's go to library, Java virtual machines, then let's go to JDK-18, then contents, and then home. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that this directory exists, and this is where our Java path will point to. So let's copy this, and here I will do export equals to Java underscore home. Actually, let's remove the equal sign. So it's going to be export Java home equals, and then let's place the whole path here. Okay. So this is how the command looks like. Basically in this file we're simply writing the bash command, which is export. So we're creating a new Java home variable that has this path right here. Okay, and the idea is that every time when we run Java code from the terminal, it will point to this directory and run all the necessary Java machine files in order to execute the code. Okay, so let's save that file and let's close it. Okay, let's close it and we're done here. And so now when you write guys, before checking whether we successfully updated the Java path, we need to reopen the terminal so we have the updated contents of our path files. So let's close it and let's open a new terminal. Okay, so if you write here echo $, and then Java underscore home, you see that now we have our Java home directory, which is great. Let's also find the location where JDK is installed and confirm it is the same. So if you do user libexec and then Java home, you can see that this is exactly the same as the directory in which we have our Java home configured. So this is all you need to do guys in order to have Java installed and ready to use before continuing with the rest of the projects. Hi everyone and welcome back to the course. In this video we'll talk about how you can install in your device Intellij. So as we already installed Java and JDK, now you're able to install the IDE and use it with confidence. So I will open a new tab in our browser and I will simply type in Google Intellij. So select the first page and here you will be sent to the Intellij IDE website. Click download and here you can either choose to download the ultimate or the community version. As you can see, most of the things that you will need to use, such as Java, Groovy, Maven projects, Git support, debugger, Docker, are all into our community version. So for that reason, you're good for this course with a community version and you will be able to complete absolutely every type of project with a community edition. So we're going to download that. You can either choose to download it for Linux, macOS, and Windows. So for macOS, again, you can choose between the Intel and Apple Silicon chip. And since I selected it, the download starts absolutely immediately, so you don't need to wait. And after the download is completed, we'll get back to the installation. So here we are back and the IntelliJ installer is downloaded, so click on it and then you will be able to start the installation. Now drag and drop IntelliJ IDE to your applications so it is stored there, and then you're done. Simply open the Spotlight search and write IntelliJ IDE, and as you can see, the IDE now will start opening for you. Click open here, click OK here if you get that, and then you will get few downloads in order to support your IntelliJ IDE. So as you can see, now you are getting to the project creation page, and actually if you worked before with PyCharm, which is again JetBrains IDE, but this one is for Python, you will be used to a very similar interface. Okay, so from this interface here, you can either create a new project, open a project, customize your projects, and control plugins. So the next step is to create a new project here. So let's click that and let's call it project 1, and please make sure that your JDK version is exactly the one that you installed. So in my case is 18.0.2. And I'm asking you this because if you have older Java versions, for example, I had Java 15 before, you would definitely want to have the one that we just installed, so it will be automatically detected right here from detected SDKs, and you can select it from there. So we're going to use the JDK that we installed. I also added a sample code. You have the options to add Git repository as well, but for now we're going to keep it simple. So let's create this project, and once created, you'll see that since we selected the option to create a sample code, automatically a class is created and we'll actually be able to run it. So let's just make sure that Java is working properly with IntelliJ. So I will click display button here and I will run the main class. So once that's done, you can see that we have hello world printed into our terminal, which means that Java is working properly and your installation is complete. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. And since you have all the installations set up, now we're able to continue with the rest of the course. Hi everyone. In this section, we'll talk about the IntelliJ project files, and in today's video, we will start by exploring the IML file. So before we start writing an actual project files, we first need to understand what is inside the project in IntelliJ. So I will create a new IntelliJ project and we'll select here a new project. We'll call it project files. As a location, I will select my desktop and we'll use the last Java version that we have. So let's create this file or this project, and then let's explore what is inside our folders here. So we already know how to create a simple project, so we have certain taste about project creation, completion, and execution in IntelliJ. So most IDEs that are advanced enough to do things beyond editing the source files will actually generate additional files that would hold the configuration of the whole project. So in this video, we will look at one of these files, and in this section, we will look about the entire project and what files are generated there. So let's go to the IML file. So you can see that every project has a file with the same name, .iml, and let's see what's inside. So the IML file contains the basic module information. So a module in IntelliJ is not the same as Java module. In IntelliJ, a module is a discrete chunk of functionality that you can run, test, and debug independently within an IDE. This is why IntelliJ is so amazing, because you have full control on your project. So every project could contain more than one module. For example, it could contain things such as, of course, source code, build scripts, unit tests, deployment descriptions, and so on. And so the IML file describes all those functionalities within a module. So as you can see here, there is only one module in this project, and this is the one that got automatically created once we created the project. And you can actually add more modules inside your project. So each module could use specific SDK depending on the project settings. So you will get fields such as the type of the module, for example Java module, the version, encoding routine, the name of the module, the content, and so on. Notice that the IML file is actually an XML file. So if you're familiar how XML files are written, you would know that every field is marked in the beginning and ends where the higher than sign ends here. So to sum up, the IML file is used to keep the module configuration of your projects. This module allows you to combine several technologies and frameworks in one application. So you're able to do testing, API configurations, and so on and so on. You can create several modules, and each of those could be responsible for a separate framework or project configuration. Hi everyone, and welcome back to this video. Today we'll talk about the IDE folder. Now, as you can see, the IDE folder is here just under the project name, and you can see a bunch of files inside. So this folder basically is a collection of configuration files, and those files are applicable to the entire project. It doesn't matter how many modules your application contains, the IDE files will always be the same because they are at the root of the project. Let's say the workplace file will contain configurations about your workplace. So when you change something in the settings of your project or in the settings of the IDE, those changes will always reflect the IDE folder. So what you actually update is those files inside. And for example, if you are to change the JDK settings, added a new module to your project, or change the encoding, those changes will apply to some of those files. So I will always advise you not to edit those files manually, but simply edit your project from the graphical user interface and let them update automatically. So for example, the workspace XML contains your personal preferences for your project. So the modules file, for example, contains the different modules that you have inside your project. For example, right here, you can see that we currently have only one module inside this project. And let's say the git ignore shows all the files that you want to ignore when you upload your code to GitHub or Bitbucket or to the version control applications. Normally, when I upload my projects to Git, I don't actually add the IDE folder, but in some applications it might be useful, especially if you have some specific configurations that you want to use from that folder. I would say only the workspace XML is really not needed because those are your personal preferences for the IDE, and you can actually see that it is already into the git ignore, so it will never be uploaded into Git while you upload your project there. Hi everyone, and welcome to this video where we will talk about the SRC folder. Now, the SRC folder is the folder where you're going to do most of your work. So the SRC is actually short of source, and this is where you're writing your source code. If you can notice, the source code that is created automatically, the hello world statement, when you create a project, is actually located exactly in the SRC folder. So here you write your main class, you create your Java packages, classes, modules, and so on. So since our small project has only one single Java file, you can actually create more files and packages, and I will show you how this is done. For example, you can create a new Java package and call it com.martiny, okay, and inside this package that will have a particular goal, you can create a new class, let's say animal. If you watch the Java introductory videos, you remember that we actually created animal, dog, cat, those type of classes. So usually it is a good idea to put them into a package in the SRC folder, just in case this is a part of a bigger project where you would have some other types of classes. So let's say if you have some project that involves creating animals and cars, you can create one package specifically related to animals, one specifically related to cars, and then perform certain operations with them in your main class right here. Okay, so this is the goal of the SRC folder. This is simply the place where you write your source code, your actual working code. So most of the work that we will do will actually be related to that folder. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. In this video we will talk about the out folder in your Java project. And if you have a look at the project that we have created right now, you actually see that there is no out folder whatsoever here into your project files. So you might think, what is that? Where is that folder? How we can actually access it? Well, the out folder always appears once you run at least once your project. So here, for example, if I run the main file to print the hello world keyword, so let's do that, you will see that an out folder immediately appears inside your project. So you can guess that this out folder is somehow related to the output of your run. So the out folder is actually a very useful IntelliJ folder, and it contains the executable Java files of your projects. So let's open it. So if I click here, you will see that we have production, then you have your project inside, you have the com folder, and then you have a main file. So if I click on it, you see that there is terms and conditions, and those appear in front of you simply because you're running a file that could have any type of functionality. So they're simply saying that this file could harm your computer, but since we created this file and we know what it does, we're going to accept the terms and conditions. So once you accept that, you see that another file appears, and this gives you the ability to decompile your file. So let's talk about the decompiler. Decompiler is a very valuable tool. You can actually see that this main file is called main.class, but not main.java. And so sometimes when you want to run Java application, you don't necessarily have access to the source code. In our case, since we created our project, we have access to the source code. But sometimes you simply have the executable files, just like if you want to play a Java game. You simply press the icon and the game starts. You don't actually need to see the code inside. Since we are clicking the main file here from the IntelliJ project, you can actually decompile it, which means that even though this file is just executable and you don't supposed to see the code inside, IntelliJ is giving you the ability to see and even edit the code inside. This is a little bit of a gray area into the programming, because if you access an application, the person that created that application don't necessarily want you to see at his source code. There are legit uses for the decompilers, but also there are many shady areas to use it. So what do you think? Should we decompile our program? Of course, it is ours, so there shouldn't be a problem. We already accepted opening the decompiler, and you can see our project here. So if you try to actually edit this, you will not be able to, because this file should normally be just read only, but everybody can basically copy this code and run it somewhere else. It is not a problem. So of course, I wouldn't advise you to do this for Java codes that are not yours and you don't supposed to edit, but this is definitely an option, and I just wanted to make you aware that you can actually open the Java classes into the IntelliJ that are coming from the outputs. So this is all about this folder, guys. To sum up, it basically contains the executable files from your project without the ability to give you editing capabilities on the source code there. So this is what you're basically going to share with the outside people that are going to run your application. It is very useful because not all IDEs are actually providing you with this out folder. For example, I'm pretty sure that with Eclipse, you will need to create the executable file on your own. So this is a really good option to keep track on the out folder, and it will be automatically updated after every run with the up-to-date source code. So definitely keep this in mind. Also, before wrapping up with today's video, I want to talk just a little bit about the external libraries right here, and just to explain you what this is. So pretty much the external libraries are libraries on which your project depends. Now, since this project is strictly a Java 18 project, you don't have much here. You simply have the folder in which you have all the Java files, right? But if you have a huge project, for example, let's say a Spring Boot or any other type of additional framework, in the external libraries you might have more information. But of course about this we will talk later into the next sections. Hi everyone, and welcome to this section where we're going to explore the key IntelliJ tools. And in this video we'll start by explaining the user interface. So I already have one project which I will of course provide it to you as well, which is a server client application. And this is pretty basic application where you have a server, you run it, and then you have a client that connects to a server. So let me show you how this is done. This is really not the topic of this video, but it is useful to understand it before we move forward. So let's run the server. Okay, I will actually select the play button here. Okay, so you can see that the server is started and now we're waiting for a client. Okay, and then I'll activate the client as well. Okay, let's run it. And you will see that the client now is connected to the server. And you can see here that we have the message client accepted. Okay, so this is a pretty standard server client application where we have a server and a client that connects to it. Okay, so let's stop that and let's talk a little bit about what tabs you can see here. So let's start by talking about the main menu bar. And this is this bar right here, just near the Intellij IDE, where you can control your code, navigate, refactor, pretty much assess all the options in the easy way from there. Then what you have next is your navigation bar, which is right here. So here you always find those arrows that you can see here. So they're pretty much showing the hierarchy of the file that you're currently on. For example, if I select the server and then I put my arrow on, for example, let's see some part of the server. Let's say on the main class, you see that here this navigation bar changes and pretty much it shows how in the hierarchy is located the line of code that you just selected or you placed your cursor in. For example, I can see that the main is actually part of the socket program, SRC folder, server, and then we're going to the main class right here. So this really helps to the developers to see exactly where they are into their project. Then right here you're having your toolbar with all the tools you need to run your code, to debug your code, and to assess any additional settings you might want to use. IntelliJ is also unique in a way that it allows you to code with other people and to start group session and code together. Then here you have the project tool window where you can see all the files in your project and assess them. So this is from where you are going to navigate from file to file, create new files, packages and projects. Now if you click here on the structure tab, you see the structure of your project, meaning that you see the main class of the file you selected, then the different methods, and finally variables there. Okay, so those different windows you can pretty much select from this area right here. You can navigate through your window bar, and this is why this area is called tool window bar. Of course, the window that is here right in the middle is called your editor window, okay, of which you can pretty much control the size, the area, the code that you want to be visible. You can simply zoom in and zoom out of this window. And right here on the top right corner, you can see errors and warnings in your code. And finally, let's talk about your show height tool window, which is located right here. And from here you have few options. Now if I extend this window and I show you the options that are right here below, bigger so you can see, but here you can pretty much see the window for running your project, the ToDo window for which we're going to talk about, problems window, terminal window from where you can also execute your code from the terminal, and you're even having a tab for a version control, which is quite useful. Let's click over these tabs and you can see that here you can create Git repository, use local history, also we have services tab, draft inspector. Here is a terminal that directly connects specifically to your project folder, and from there you can write commands such as, let's say, java dash dash version. Okay, so you can see that our tab is working properly. You can see any problems in your project and explore them in detail and locate them as well. You have the ToDo tab, which contains all the ToDo tasks, and of course the run window, which is showing you the output from your runs. So this was the brief overview of all the Windowses and the user interface. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video, we will focus on the project tool window. So if you go back to our server client project that is already created for you, let's have a talk about the tool project window, which is right here. So the project tool window is a place that likely you're going to spend a lot of time. So this window exposes plenty of views for your project, and it's the main way for you to launch your project files into the main editor window, right? You would normally go here, select a file, and this file will be displayed in your project tool window. So normally, if you need more screen space, for example, for your code, let's say if I want to zoom here but I don't have space to display everything, you can of course minimize or completely remove your project tool window, so you can make it smaller from here or resize it, or you can remove it by clicking on the project tab right here. Okay, so as you can see now, you have plenty of space to see your editor window and see all the code pretty clearly and zoom as much as you like. So let's reopen it. So the project tool window normally shows the files using your project view. So this view, as you can see, shows all the files inside your project, even the ones that are not directly related to your code, such as the IDE folder and the IML file. You can actually change this view to show, for example, only the files that are related to your project. For example, if I click here to project, you can choose what exactly you want to be shown. For example, if I click on packages, you basically see only the specific files that are related to your project. And so from here, you will be able to see only the files that are directly related to your project, and of course the libraries as well that are currently installed. But the IML files and the IDE files that you don't really need are not going to be displayed. You can also show, for example, all the project files as well, or you can show only production or tests. But you can see that since right now we're not having any tests, there is actually nothing displayed. So let's go back to our project view. And so this is how you can use this drop down here to see different prospects of your project that suits to you. Normally, I choose to use the project prospect, but sometimes in case you have very big projects with multiple modules, sometimes you just want to see your class files. So you can definitely have this choice from here. So this is all about the project window, guys. Hi everyone, and welcome back to this video where we will talk about the structure tool window and navigation bar in IntelliJ. So let's first talk and understand the structure tool window. So directly below the tool window, you can enable to show the structure window. This window pretty much shows the structure of your class. And it is very important sometimes to keep a look at it, especially if you're working on large-scale projects. So the contents of the structure window always reflect the structure of the currently selected class or interface in the project window. So for example, while I selected server, you will see certain classes here, but when I select file or client, you will see a different view. So it always shows a breakdown of the class that you have currently selected. So the structure window shows all the fields, methods, lambdas, and properties of the selected class. It will even tell you if the class members are inherited by another one or not. As you know, Java is object-oriented language, and for that reason, IntelliJ has the ability to show each of the properties for every class. So the structure window is a really helpful tool to navigate through your class, especially when your class becomes more complex. And right here from the top, you can pretty much filter. For example, you can remove all the functions or lambdas and so on. Once you select the class, all of the existing fields will be automatically enabled, and then you have the ability to disable them. Okay, so if you have many attributes, many functions, classes, relations, and so on, you can definitely feel free to disable some of those types and focus on others. Okay, now once we understood the structure window, let's talk about the navigation bar. So in many cases, the navigation bar, which is right here, is underappreciated. Many programmers dismiss this tool, and actually many of the tools available for this IDE, but this is actually the purpose of this course, so you're aware of those things and you can really optimize your Java experience. So the navigation toolbar is one of the most unappreciated tools. And this is because you can really navigate through the whole project simply using this navigation bar, just in the same way that you would do from the tool navigation window. So you can actually navigate absolutely every item right here by clicking on it. Okay, so let's say if you click on the socket programming project, you can select different elements from it, right? So let's say if I want to go to the out folder, right? And from the out folder to production, and from production to socket programming, and from there it will show you all the files that are there. So you don't need to go through the whole project right here. You can simply do it from the navigation bar. So it is really useful tool. So let's say if I go to client, you can see all the functions and classes into client. Let's say you can select those, and then you'll see in your editing window your cursor directly going to them. So this is a very good way to navigate through your project and access different sections from this small area here. So I hope, guys, after these first two videos that you have a very good understanding on how you can navigate through your project. I'm really trying to take a step-by-step approach so you don't get overwhelmed. I hope that works. But now you're ready to move to the next videos, and actually in the very next one we're going to talk about creating scratch files. Yes, I didn't forget about this small tab here, and also I will show you how you can manage your to-do tasks. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video we will talk about how you can create scratch files and to-do tasks. So here I am into our Intellij project, and let's talk about the scratches and consoles. So the scratch files are letting you to create scratches for your project. It is a really handy way to write things down and keep tracks on them. But sometimes you want to write some codes that you're not entirely sure if you want to add them in your project or not. So this is where you're creating the scratch files. You can usually create a scratch file by simply doing a right click on the scratches and consoles and then selecting a scratch file. So let's click scratch file, and then you will get certain options for what type of scratch file you want to create. You can see that there are plenty of different options for you. You can create HTML, JSON, C++. You can use so many programming languages and Java versions. You can basically compile the Java scratch files just like you can do with your standard files. And once you are satisfied with the outcome, you can actually add them inside your project. So let's try that. Let's create a new Java file. Okay, and let's do here system.out.println, and let's write here, this is a scratch file. Okay, so if I run that, you see that we're getting in the console that this is a scratch file. So now you have a completely working Java file that is not yet inside your project, and so you can create it, add and remove attributes, and of course this file is able to connect with your existing project classes. So if I write here client, right, you can see that this is actually coming from our default package from the SRC folder. So this would be a fully operational file. It's just that it's not inside your project. You can, of course, change also the format of this file by refactoring. So once you write your code there, run it, and it works properly, then you can actually transfer it in your project. And so let's say once you are satisfied with your Scratch, you can simply drag it and drop it to your SRC folder, click refactor, and you can see that now this file is here, okay? And now it is a part of your existing project, okay? So this is all about Scratch files. Let's now talk about the to-do tasks. So if you're new to programming, I'll first tell you what the to-do means. Well, the to-do tasks are normally instructions for yourself or other members of your team. This is a note that serves as a reminder to do particular things or add specific features later on in your work, something that you don't have time for now, or you're waiting for something else to be completed before adding this functionality. You might think, okay, this might be not a big deal, but after all, when you work on the big projects, marking where you need to do additional work is quite useful. So let's write a to-do task. So you can do this as a comment, and you can do to-do, and you can see that immediately this is colored in green. And you can write, for example, create one more client class, okay? And then you can add another to-do task, to do update the IP address of the client, okay? So you can see that this is completely different from a standard comment that we would write, because once you add the to-do marker, then this becomes not only a comment, but a task that we need to complete later on. So normally, most of the IDEs, when you write to do, they don't take it as something special. They take it as a simple comment. So this covering here is simply done by the Intellij functionality and additional abilities to track tasks that you need to do later on. So for example, now if I select the to-do window from Intellij, it already detects that you have two tasks to do in a single file. And if I click on it, you will see both of those tasks right here, and you can click on them. So this is very useful, especially again if you work on big scale projects. And not only you can see your comments inside a file with a different color, but also you have a specific tab with which you can keep track on those comments and be able to add the additional work and to locate it easily. So don't underestimate the to-do functionality, because this window will really save you a lot of time as a developer to easily locate the pieces of code that you would need to edit. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video we will explore two particular tabs, which are the Problems tab and the Terminal. So here we are into our server client project, and if you see on this tab right here below, from which we already explored the Run tab and the To-Do tasks, you can see two other tabs right here, which are called Problems and Terminal. So let's hit the Problems and let's talk a bit about it. Now, the Problems tool window shows all the problems and warnings in your entire project. So you might not see the value of the Problem tool window at first place, because Intellij has actually the great functionality to tell you immediately if you've done syntax problem or there is a warning. But this window really helps you to keep track on all the warnings. So in many cases, you would continue executing with your project even if you have warnings. However, if you want to keep track on those warnings, then the Problems tab really comes into play. So if you don't have this window here, the only way that you can see the exact information about warnings is if you simply hover over the warnings in your code. So imagine if you have plenty of warnings on different locations, you need to go on each and every location where you have warning and see what the warning is. So instead of doing that, you can see that we're having just two files and we already have about 11 warnings. Imagine on a huge project. Many times certain functionalities, they get depreciated, or there is a variable that has been declared but you haven't used anywhere. So to keep track on all of those warnings, you can simply go to the problems window and read them. It shows you the warning type and the specific line at which this warning happens. So if I double click on the different warnings, I will immediately go to the specific location at which those warnings are present. For example, here the read line is depreciated, so I can still use it in my code, but there is something better that I can use. Now the next window or tab that I want to talk about is a terminal. You can click on it, and actually I would say that this is a really cool option of every IDE that has a terminal built in. You would ask why. So if you wouldn't have this option, this is what we need to do in order to execute terminal commands. I would need to create an external terminal, then I would need to find the exact project in which I'm running my Java code. So for example, I would need to go to desktop, okay, search for the project and do, let's say, cd socket programming, okay, and then I will be on the exact project folder and be able to run the commands that would work with my project. Another problem is that here I would need to have an external terminal, so I will constantly need to switch between the project and then open the terminal again, right? So why doing all that if we can have a built-in terminal and we can actually execute and perform actions with our project immediately after we added a change? So this is the whole idea about having terminal built-in your project. And trust me, many programmers are actually using the terminal because typing your commands is sometimes actually way faster comparing to clicking on the play buttons here. And the coolest thing of all is that when you open a terminal in IntelliJ, IntelliJ drops you directly into your project folder. And I would say really the best thing about using the IntelliJ terminal is actually for version control. So many times you need to do git push, right, or git pull and so on in order to control the version of your code and upload it to an external repository. So as a programmer, you need to do those things a few times a day, if not more, and doing it from the terminal is the best option. Another reason for using a terminal is if you do some specific projects. For example, if you do a Maven or Gradle project, there are some commands that would need to be written into the terminal in order to execute those projects. Or if you run a MongoDB or Mongo database. From the terminal, you can actually manage and create new databases that would be hard to do simply from the user interface of IntelliJ. So having a terminal really closes the circle for all the tools that you need from a single IDE in order not only to write code, but to complete a professional project. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and in the next video, which is going to actually be the last in that section, we will talk a little bit more on the main editor window, which is right here where your files are, and I will show you some interesting things and functionalities to keep in mind when working with the editor window. Hi guys, in today's video we will talk about the main editor window. So the main editor window is basically the window with which you're going to work the most. It occupies the largest screen space, and this is for a good reason. This is where you write your code. I'm sure that you don't actually need instructions on how you can use your main editor window. I mean, you're simply writing Java code there, and it is very intuitive. There are many capabilities that are quite intuitive and you can figure it out on your own. However, I would like to point some things that could really optimize your work with the main editor window. So the first thing I want to point out is those parentheses right here. You can see that we have those with minus sign at the moment, okay? So those parentheses are used to fold your code. So for example, if you're auditing your code or if you're reviewing it and you want to make sure that you have the right structure, those quotes here or those brackets are priceless. So let's say if I hit on the minus quote here, you can see that there is a line that lights up, okay? And you can basically see where our parentheses start and where it ends, okay? So by clicking it, you're pretty much going to fold everything between those two brackets. And then you can see that here we're having actually a plus sign, and if you click it, you're going to extend your code again. So they're so useful because if you have multiple classes, objects, and so on, you can fold all of those classes and all the contents to that class, or in that case method, and make sure that you have the right structure. You can also fold the imports in case you have many imports and you don't necessarily want to see them right now. So that's about the brackets. Now let's talk about the run button. So every time where you can have a class with runnable code, and this would normally be a main class or a class from which you execute your application, you can have the play button. So for example, here, since we have the main class, we have the play button because we can execute this class. Also, since the main class in that case is part of the client class, we can also execute the client class. And what would happen is that once we click the play button here, we'll go straight to our main application, and from there we're going to execute the rest of the code. Okay, so having play buttons is really useful because you can see exactly where your code is going to start executing from and exactly what portion of the code is being executed. Then if you take a look at the top right corner, you can actually see all the problems that you have with your code. So you know that one of the options was to check from our problems window, which in my opinion is actually more useful. But here in this corner, you can also explore all of your problems and warnings that you currently have. And you can actually disable them. So for example, if you don't want to see syntax problems, or actually if you want to see only syntax problems, you can select syntax, and if you want to see all the problems, then you can select all the problems and you will see the warnings. Also, a very nice feature that was added in the recent years into Intellij is the dynamic code review. So let's say that you want to stay on this client class because you have work to do here, but you want to check something below. So maybe, let's say, if I run, for example, the main method, we're creating here a client class, right? And let's say you want to know how this client is actually getting created. Well, instead of going to the client method, you can simply go here where this scroll bar is, place your cursor somewhere, and then you immediately are going to see the code throughout your project. So you will get a separate window with which you can scroll over the project, but once you remove your cursor from that area, you're still on the place that you left it. And I guess I don't need to mention that this is really useful when you work with very long files and move back and forth to find some error or some more information. I faced this type of troubles quite a lot in my career when working with files that are more than 1000 lines of code. So definitely bear in mind this option and use it. It's really useful in practice. Also, sometimes in many IDEs, those curly brackets are really not intuitive. And this is because if you have here a curly bracket, you don't know where it starts. Does it start here? Does it start at another place that a curly bracket is opened? You don't know. So if the opening bracket of this closing bracket here is not within the window, by simply placing the cursor near it, you actually see where it starts. So now I know that this starts at the client. So I know that this bracket actually closes the client class. There are also additional capabilities, for example, if you work with Android or Java FX projects, which allow you to see your app in a separate window, but about this we will talk in other sections, of course. So this was everything, guys, for this video and that section actually. I hope you got a very good understanding about what you see in front of you on the Intellij IDE. Hi everyone, and welcome to this section where we're going to explore the navigation and code generation capabilities in Intellij. So in this first video, we'll talk about how you can search in Intellij. So here we're back to our socket programming project that you have provided for this course. And so in this project and in basically any other project, sometimes using only your keyboard without using the mouse makes you to considerably increase your coding speed. So if you're wondering why we're creating this section for navigating through code, if you can simply scroll through the files, everyone who is actually coding will tell you that on huge projects that involve a lot of files, packages, classes, and so on, the speed is very important. So if you examine your coding process, you will find out that at least half of your coding time you're not really doing anything, but instead you're doing some navigation through your code, you're searching for something and so on. So if somehow you can improve that and you can improve the speed for you navigating through code, then you will be way more productive. So this is the whole goal of this section. And in this video, we will start by talking for how you can search easily in Intellij. So actually, if you close all the files that are already opened, you will see that here we're having some startup screen. And not many people are actually paying attention to the startup screen. But here you can see few options that are really important for you in order to navigate quickly through code. So you can see that if you press double shift or 2x shift, you activate the search everywhere window. So let's do that. Let's press 2x shift and here it is. So you can begin writing something there and you'll start seeing plenty of results. You'll find absolutely every item in the project or outside the project just by writing the name. It's like a Google search inside your IDE. So you can search files, actions, classes, everything. You simply need to type or to select those tabs here and you can find everything. So you can either specify what you want to search for or simply select the Alt tab, which will search absolutely everything. So maybe you notice that there is also here a tick box that says include non-project items, and if you select it, you are searching not only for what you have inside the project, but also for non-project items like classes and Java documentation. So if you want to select this click button here, you can actually double tap the shift button on your keyboard, and this will happen even without clicking on this click box. So I will press 2x shift and 2x shift again. You see that the box was checked and then unchecked. So for example, if I want to search, let's say, edit, you see how many options we have here, and those are different options. So we have edit configuration, edit custom properties, edit color scheme. So if, for example, you want to change the color scheme on your projects, you can choose that button. You have edit path, edit scopes, everything related to edit. For example, if I want to edit the configuration, right, I can click on this and then the run debug configurations window pops up. Of course, we're not going to talk about this window right now, but this is simply to show you how easy and quick it is to navigate through search everything tab. And imagine if you have very huge project with thousands of files, you can simply search the name of the file here and then select it. So let's talk about how you can find actions using the search everywhere tab. So let's first talk about what finding actions means. So action usually refer to IDE action, like opening a terminal, building a project, creating file, and so on. You can actually perform actions from multiple places in Intellij IDE. You can do this from the main menu bar right here. You can do it by clicking a particular button for, let's say, creating a file. You can use a keyboard shortcut, or of course, you can use the Everywhere Search dialog. There, as you can see, you simply need to type the action and click Enter. I would say in that case, the Everywhere Search is the second fastest way for you to open or to do certain action, but the fastest one is of course by shortcut. And so if you can't remember, for example, the shortcut, you can simply find the action, for example, terminal, And near the terminal tab, you actually see what buttons you need to press in order to launch this action. This is actually valid for absolutely every action that you're performing with IntelliJ. For example, if I click File here, you see that there are some buttons that will, for example, launch the project structure, save all files, and so on. For example, now, if I want to open the project structure, I can either open the button from here, okay, or I can simply press Command and a semicolon. This will do the same thing. So if you want to use more shortcuts, definitely make sure that you know where the shortcut action is, and you can learn those shortcuts from there. You see that on the right hand side of every command that has shortcut enabled, you can see the exact shortcut, whether you use Mac OS or Windows. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. Today we'll talk about how you can open files and classes. Well, I know you think that, okay, opening files and classes should be like a very simple task, and everybody could simply go to the project and open the files and classes. But I want today to share the different ways in which you can do that. So I know you've always opened the files and the classes from your project tool window. Well, you'll be quite glad to know that there is actually a quicker way to do that. Now, of course, this project is quite small for you to find the usefulness of the quicker way of opening files, but imagine you have project with thousands of files in which you want to open one of those. Well, let's actually take a project like this. So if you go to github.com JetBrains IntelliJ community, this is actually the project of building IntelliJ. Yes, it is an open source project and it is absolutely huge. It has 343,000 commits. So let's get this project and open it into our IDE. You simply need to click Code and then download zip. Once you do that, you can unzip the file easily. It will take some time because, as I said, the project is huge. And then from IntelliJ, simply click Open and navigate to the folder where your project is. So since mine is on the desktop, I open it from there. So let's open this project. Let's click Trust Project and open it in a new window. Okay, and you see how enormous amount of files we have here. So sometimes if you want to go and open certain file, it could be really a nightmare. So let's say I want to open the artifact repository manager file, but I don't actually know where it is. So if we have all those folders opened, right, and if I hover over here in this area near project and I write artifact repository manager, you will see all the files that are related to repository manager, and it is way easier for you to find the exact file that you need. So now I can see that this is the file that I need and I can simply select it. Okay, so this is how easy it is for you to find files that you need simply by hovering in the project tab and then writing wherever you want to find. Now, of course, if you want to open a specific class, there is another way you can do it. So when creating and naming source files in Java, it is a good idea to name the file with the same name as the class. That way, when you look at the project tool window, you can tell where classes files are because you're looking the actual file names. So sometimes you might not follow exactly this advice, and then it could be a nightmare to find your classes. Let's say if we have this file named artifact repository manager, you might have classes inside that are not named in the same way, right? So maybe I want to change the name of this class here. So since I cannot search by file name, how am I going to find this class easily? So you can do that by simply hitting Command O. This will open the everything search and it will be located on classes. Alternatively, you can simply hit double shift and then select classes. So now here you can search for all the classes inside your project. So if I search for artifact, and you can see how many files there are, so artifact repository manager, I can easily find this class from here. So actually having so many files, you can really see now the reason why having a good search engine is one of the best things of the Intellij IDE. It would be a nightmare to navigate through all those files. In the same way, you can search for symbols. So whether you're looking for variables, method names, or constants, this would mean that you are searching for symbols. And as I said, sometimes it could be hard to find classes, but it could be enormously hard to find specific symbols, method names, and so on. And this is because if you want to search for a method, you actually need to go to the actual file, scroll over that file, and find the exact method. So instead of doing that, you can again press double shift and click symbols. Of course, every project has plenty of symbols, so you need to be exact. So if, for example, you want to search variables related to version, you can type version in symbols and you see that now we are searching for the symbols in this project. Of course, this project is huge, so this takes updates, iterations, and so on. And eventually, you would have some suggestions for a version. As you can see, they are now in front of you. But also, you'll find out that if your project is updating like ours is right now, you can see here in the bottom that we're updating this project since we just downloaded it. The symbol search is available only when your project is completely updated. So this is how you can search symbols. And with this, guys, we are going to end this video because now you know how to search for files, classes, and symbols, which will really speed up your coding experience with JetBrains and Intellij IDE. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video, I will show you how you can check recent file changes in your Intellij project. So if you go back to the huge Intellij community project, I will show you one shortcut that you might really need on a regular basis. And this is the Command E for Mac or Control E for Windows. So this dialog is quite useful when you have one of those moments where you try to remember which source file you were working on. So this window will really help you to refresh this memory. So it doesn't tell you only the files that you recently touched, it also tells you some of the recent actions that you did to those files. So as you can see, since we were opening the Artifact Repository Manager and Artifact Kind, as you can see here from the top, right here, this is why we can see those files that we recently worked on. So if you open a file, you do some work on it and then you close it, but you fail to remember which one it was, it is very easy for you to find out on which files you were working at a particular day. You can also click this tab to show only the edited files, or you can show everything that you opened during the day. You can also click Shift Command E or Shift Control E for Windows if you want to see the list of all recent changes you've made to your project. For example, the creation of new file. And so here you can see all the recent locations where you've been and the exact source code that you have been looking at and the exact lines. I know that it is absolutely crazy that Intellij can record so many of the activities that you are doing. So it doesn't only record the files that you looked at, but also the specific code that you are using. So for this reason, I really advise you to write down these shortcuts in order for you to be able to use them later on. So let's close this project and open our socket programming project by hitting File, Open Recent, Socket Programming, okay, and we're going back to it. So here I want to show you how you can get to classes that you're using. For example, in many cases, you have files in which you're using classes, okay, you're creating objects from classes that are outside your file. Let's say if into our server class I write client equals new client, okay, and I write some IP and a port, then obviously here I created a client. However, I don't know what is included in this client class, okay, so I cannot access it. For example, with the server class is in the same file, so simply if I go up, I will see where server is defined, what it takes, so it takes a port here, and I can see what is happening with that port. But for client, I don't have the client in the same file. Again, if you work with many files and you want to check what is included in the class which you're using, whether it is internal to your project or external Java class, such as, for example, here, buffer input stream is not part of our project, but we use it because it's part of the socket package, then there should be an option to check what is included in that class, right? And there are two ways to do that in IntelliJ. The first one is to press Command and then click on the class you want to explore. And when you do that, IntelliJ will directly open the file which contains that class. So for example, we can see that client is here. It is part of our project, and we can see what's included in that class. And interestingly enough, you can do that also with external classes. For example, if I go to buffer input stream, if I hover over it, you'll be able to see some documentation, and if I press Command click, you will go to the buffer input stream Java file, and you will see what is included in this method right here. Another way to do that is actually to press Command B, and then you will not need to actually click on the method or the class, but you will directly be sent to its body, and you will be able to see what's included inside. So you're not limited just for files that are included in your project, but you'll also be able to see standard Java libraries like you just saw. And finally, if you want to see the definition of the class that you're using straight away, you can simply place the cursor on the class, click Control and then space, and then you can basically see the definition of the whole class right there. So you can see how the class is defined even without the need to go through it or use any additional features. Simply by pressing Option and space, you can see the class definition of the class that you're using here. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. In this video, we will see how you can show members of a Java class. So going back to our IntelliJ project, you can see that sometimes in a class we have some member variables, and those are defined here. So there are at least two ways to see all the member variables of your class. The first one that I will actually show you in this video is simply by clicking Command 7. So you can see that once you do that, on the left hand side you can actually see the structure window in which you can see the variables defined, such as socket, server, and the int variable. You can also see your main class, and you can see the server. By clicking again Command 7, you are going straight to that window, and you can switch between those. But we already talked about the structure window, but this is just another way for you to see from there your member variables. Now, another neat feature of IntelliJ lets you view your class hierarchy in the currently selected class in the editor. So, for example, if I go here to the client class that we just added and I put the cursor on client, you can select Ctrl H, and you can see that on the right hand side you're getting the class client. And so here that you can see that this class client is used within the object. Okay, so the idea of hierarchy is for you to be able how your project is structured. And for example, if we go to the other IntelliJ project, which is way bigger and is the IntelliJ Community Master, let's go to a class, for example this one, and select again Ctrl H. You can see that this is a class that is not included in another one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. Today we're going to talk about one very important topic for your coding skills, and this is the code generation with IntelliJ. So we already explored quite a few features into IntelliJ, but to continue now we will need to create finally a new project and write some code there. So let's create a new project, and let's create the name of the project called company. Okay, so let's use this window. Okay, and let's create a few classes. So the first class, I will create a new Java class. Okay, and I will call this class worker. Okay, and this class will be responsible to generate workers. So every worker would have attributes such as int, salary. Okay, it would also have a name. So let's do string equals string name. Okay, and we will not specify any name as well. So in order to be able to set those variables, there are a few ways. The first one is using constructor, which will enable us to generate the salary and the name of the worker immediately after we create the class. Then we have get and set methods, or called getters and setters, with which we can also create a salary or name and also display the salaries and names. Now, those two ways for creating salary and name in Java and especially in IntelliJ are possible to be created automatically. So the idea is that IntelliJ detects that you have two variables here, so salary and name, and it takes those and automatically generates a constructor and also generates methods to get and to set those variables. So let's see how this is done. So one way to do that is to simply do a right click, select generate, and then you get the menu, or you can simply select Command N to get the same menu. So from here, as you can see, you can get constructor, getters, setters, bolt, and other options that we will not discuss in that video. So let's first generate a constructor. Okay, so once you click that, you can see that IntelliJ is allowing you to choose whether you want to generate constructor that sets only the salary or the name or both. Well, in that case, I will choose both, so when we create an object from that class, we will need to pass salary and name. Let's click OK. And you can see that automatically we already have a code generated. So this is a typical constructor. It has the same name as our class name, and also it takes salary and name and pass them to the local variables. Okay, now let's create some setters and getters. So let's do generate, and then let's do getters and setters, and let's create those for both salary and name again. Click OK. And you can see that here you're having now 4 methods. One method to get the salary, so this method takes nothing but returns the salary. One method to set the salary, which takes salary but returns nothing. And exactly the same thing for the name. So you can see how much code we generated automatically using the constructor and the setters and getters function into IntelliJ. So let's try those methods into our main class. Now let's create a new worker. I'll remove this hello world, okay, and let's write worker John equals to new worker, and here first, as you can see, we need to pass salary, and let's make his salary $100,000, okay, and then we can select a name, and let's write here John Smith, okay. So here we have new worker. Now if you want to display the salary that John has, you can simply use the getter method. So if I do John dot get salary, okay, and let's run this main file. Let's do it from the play button here and actually print that. So let's do system dot out dot print ln, okay, and we get the salary of John. Then this method will return the salary, and this here will print it. So let's run that, and you can see that John gets $100,000. If you do the same thing, let's say system.out.println, and then we do John.getName, and we run that, you can see that his name is John Smith. Now we already tested the constructor, the getters, and now let's test the setters. So just before executing the getters, let's activate the setters. So if you do John.setName Jack, so we will update his name, and then let's do John.setSalary. So let's say he's getting a raise and he is making 130k. So let's run that, and you can see that successfully we used the set and the get methods for the new object. So as you can see, those setters, getters, and constructors are actually one of the key methods created for every class, and with IntelliJ you can generate them automatically. Please make sure to subscribe my channel for more free coding courses.